And I think, as most of you know, this is one of the more complex attachment styles. Hi, guys. This is Christine, your relationship and mindset master doctor, and your leverage for change. Hope you can join me again for another, just talk it out series of lives that I do to help you on your journey to becoming, uh, to have more healthy relationships, basically, just be able to navigate life challenges in a more successful way. So, because what a lot of individuals don't recognize is that their attachment style, their attachment style dictates how they interact, not only in intimate relationships, but also life, in life, right? So I want to be able to help you navigate those challenges. And so I try to do these lives once a week on Mondays for me right now, because I'm in the PST time, it's 10 o'clock. And for you guys in the Eastern Standard Time is 1 o'clock. So I try to do it 1 o'clock EST time because that's usually my time zone. Okay, so let's before let me just set a framework from where I want to really begin. And first, I want to just come to let you know that someone with all of the attachment styles can, except for the secure, can be very challenging. But the one I'm going to be speaking about today can be enormously challenging, and that is a fearful avoidant attachment style. The fearful avoidant attachment style. Why is it challenging? Why is it more challenging than the dismissive or the anxious? Well, because this style has it has both sides of it has both the side of the dismissive part individual as well as the anxious individual. And I mean, just having one of those attachment styles is challenging enough. And so to have both sides of that is, you can just imagine how traumatizing it is for the person who has this attachment style, as well as the individual that they are in relationship with, right? And I want to also make clear that everything is always along a spectrum. Everything is always, there's nothing set in stone. So it's not, as a matter of fact, each individual will have one style that they primarily, respond, act from in relationships. So they may be anxious or dismissive or fearful, right? Mostly anxious or dismissive, because as I say, the fearful has both sides, right? So remember, it's along a spectrum. So you could be very anxious, very dismissive, or just, somewhere in the middle or somewhere in the lower end. So remember that it is always along a spectrum. The other thing I want to remind you of, because it can be a thing that makes some individuals who has this particular style feel as if they're just terrible or bad people. Nobody, I want to really make this clear, because nobody in their right minds would choose such an attachment style. Nobody would do that, right? And so I want to make clear that you're not a bad person, right? And even though the things that are happening around causes a lot of harm to the people that you're to yourself, as well as the individuals you're in relationship with, this is something that you developed as a child. And as a child, especially from the age 0 to about 5 3, you don't have the capacity to choose what to believe, or to kind of process things that are happening to you. So you basically accepted everything as true. And this is true for all the different attachment styles, right? You were not able to process it, and so you accepted it as true. And so where that goes, it just automatically goes into your subconscious mind. And just the more often that these things occur that causes these attachment styles, the more often that they occur, this is when it becomes wired into your subconscious. And so as you grow older, this is this is where you operate from. This is the paradigm you operate from. This is what you know is you believe to be true, because this is what you saw in your relationships with your caregivers as a child. This is what you experienced in your relationships with your caregiver as a child. So nobody chose these attachment style, guys. Nobody chose it. So nobody is horrible and terrible. What I can say to you though is that as an adult, when you see recurring patterns of behavior that's causing distress in your relationships, it is really important for you to now come to the knowledge that something is not working for you. Something is not working for you in your relationships or in life. And as an adult, you're no longer a child at the mercy of your caregivers, or because, when you're a child, you depend on your caregivers for everything. You depend on them for your existence, right? To take care of you, to protect you, to feed you, to clothe you, to put a shelter over your head. And so now that you're older, you're no longer at the mercy of your caregivers. You have now the autonomy to choose to do and to learn what is going on, and also make the choice to work on changing these patterns that were embedded in your subconscious as a child. So I wanted to give you that baseline before I start listening to the video and commenting on specific areas. And please forgive me if sometimes I do repeat certain things, because everything is intertwined, and so I might repeat certain things because sometimes it will just connect with some other point that maybe that I'm making in this video. So guys, I'm going to get started with this video now, and please, I would appreciate if you comment or make some comment to see what if you have any questions, please comment, and I will try to answer you as soon as possible. All right, so let me get started with the video. And so I want to kind of help you to understand, and perhaps by listening, ask yourself these questions to determine whether this is the attachment style that you more identify with. Remember now that all the attachment styles, every single one of them, nothing is set in stone. That each attachment style, the avoidant, the fearful avoidant, the dismissive avoidant, the anxious preoccupied, and the secure, will have elements of each attachment style in them. And this will come out in their response of how they respond in relationships. So when I'm speaking about the fearful avoidant attachment style, what it basically means is that these are going to be the elements that you see a lot of in in their behavior as it pertains to relationships, and specifically intimate or romantic relationships. So, and all the attachment styles, guys, are really more it's more highlighted, it's more you see it more in intimate relationships, because of the way that in intimate relationships you're closer, there is more emotional connection in intimate relationships, whereas relationships like for with your friends, you can actually kind of sometimes move away from that friend, right? You don't live with that friend, you don't see that friend every single day. The same thing with your coworkers, the same thing with your boss, and any other kind of relationship that you have. But it is magnified in intimate relationships because of the proximity of both individuals to each other, and the extent that they're always, the time that they spend together. This is why it is so much more magnified in intimate relationships. If we can remember that at the very core of this attachment style, one of the biggest problems is that they don't trust relationships. So a lot of their behaviors are going to go towards self-preservation, right? They're going to try to preserve what sense of self they have left at all cost. And because of this, these are the individuals, you're someone who will go into a relationship because you crave the intimacy of relationships. But as soon as that relationship gets really emotionally thick with emotions because you've gotten much closer to this person, you're going to want to seek a way out because you fear that this person is going to um, leave you, betray you, abandon you in some way. Because remember, so I want to expand on that a little bit. As children, someone with this attachment style was someone that either was abused by one parent or both parents, and so and this may not have been a consistent abuse. It may have been sporadic, but the child learned the child learned to be very aware of their surroundings. And so sometimes what will happen is that if you see a child, sometimes in research, what happened was that there is this thing where the child will go toward the parent and then just freeze. They just freeze because now they remember a time when that parent hurt them. So they know they need to go toward the parent because the parent is the one who was caring for them, who was feeding them, who they depended on for for life to live, right? But when they go toward the parents, then there's this fear that, is this a time that this person is going to hurt me? And so they may freeze, and either they will very slowly continue toward that parent, or they will just back away, right? And so this pattern of behavior it follows them into their adult relationships, right? It follows them into their adult relationships, where they will go into a relationship because they want a relationship. Everybody needs it, but they are not as, the difference is that even though the dismissive is, they have this side of the dismissive as well. The difference with the dismissive and the fearful is that the fearful craves connection. They crave connection. The dismissives don't really crave connection. It's nice to have, but it's not something they crave. They actually like to be by themselves more. But the fearful avoidant individual, they crave connection. So they're always going towards someone to form a connection. However, when they get to the part where they form this connection and everything is beginning to feel good, and both parties are really enjoying the emotional intimacy of each other and stuff like that, then something in them causes them to now freeze, just like in the example I gave you of the caregiver. Because now they remember what they learned was that when they got too comfortable and too comfortable in that love connection, they don't trust that. They trust that somehow it's too good to be true. It's too good to be true. So they freeze and they pull back. Or they'll do some things like they'll sabotage the relationship by doing things, maybe cheating doing maybe cheating or doing other things like that to sabotage the relationship, maybe blaming the person for something or accusing them of something, or they'll simply just disappear, find some reason to leave. So this is a pattern of behavior that plays out in a relationship with someone with a fearful avoidant attachment style. They want the closeness and connection of a relationship. They want it. They truly want it. But they fear it as well because they figure that this person that they have so much, emotional connection to is going to hurt them because it was the same as they were when they were children. It's going to hurt them. It can't, it's too good to be true. So they, instead of them waiting for something to happen for the other person to leave them or to cause some kind of to hurt them in some way, they leave, or they sabotage the relationship so that they the other partner leaves, or something, the relationship is broken. All right, so that is, let me continue with the video to see where I can lead you from here. The attachment style of the fearful avoidant has the anxious side to them and the dismissive side to them. The problem is that a lot of times this attachment style, the fearful avoidant, has difficulty, because you know that the attachment style of these two opposite sides, anxious and dismissive, are usually, imagine that being in one person, right? So therefore, someone with the fearful avoidant attachment style is always kind of flip-flopping, as you may call it, from one side to the next, depending on the experiences they're currently in, or even the partners that they're currently with, and also individual challenges that they may face in relationship. So this partner is not only a bit confusing to their partner that they're with, but also to themselves, because they have never really kind of integrated, learned to integrate the emotional side of the anxious, preoccupied with the logical side of the dismissive avoidant. And so what happens is that they seem to flip-flop, almost looking like they're like two different people. Showing up in a relationship at the beginning, they are very warm. They really are very warm people from the emotional side, of the anxious, preoccupied, and they crave relationships. So they're going in, they can be very warm and loving, and so their partner might get quite confused when they see them becoming really withdrawn and then not have the ability to really maintain a stable relationship, because these are the relationships you will also hear. They also have a tendency to cause this kind of a on-off kind of a thing, because of the fact that they go into relationships really wanting it, but in a way their self-conscious is always looking for self-preservation. They will always be looking for an out. So really, this person, they crave that intimacy, but they have a tendency to self-abandon, right? So they abandon themselves at the expense of whoever it is, which is the anxious side, right? They're with. And so they, after a while, they feel that they have no sense of who they really are, because they've lost themselves into their partner. And so because of that, before they get really scared, and that is why they will just leave, right? Or they will just totally abandon the relationship, because they fear that losing themselves in a relationship. And so before they do that, they would rather leave the relationship, even when they're really in love with you. So it doesn't matter if they're in love with you or not. The fear of just losing themselves to you, because what they do is they people please, they build their whole entire lives around you. They do things at their expense, the expense of their happiness. They self-abandon, right? And so because of that, when they reach that stage where they realize, they no longer know who they are, they will actually leave the relationship because of that. So you will find individuals with this attachment style will be from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next. And they may last a bit longer with someone who may love them more, and also will be giving them more and telling them more and giving them more emotional connection, only because they are going to always be withholding some kind of information about their personal life, their personal pain and struggles, because they fear that their partner is going to use it against them. And so You may find that they're very warm at the beginning, but they're not going to let you into every. So that's a two sides kind of integrating again. Not integrating, I would say. They're kind of like at one time they're like this, and one time they're like that, and so it's really hard for their partner to understand, or even themselves, actually, guys. And so you'll find a lot of times that someone with this attachment style will feel unworthy of healthy relationships. They'll feel unworthy of being loved because from their experiences as a child, they felt that they had to self abandon and give everything of themselves to their our caregivers or whatever it is, do everything for them, or they won't be loved. So now that fear is still there, but now they're able to leave. They're able to leave because now they have that autonomy. So when that emotional connection and that self-abandon thing gets too intense, they will leave. And I said, even when they love you. So it is a really tricky thing, and they feel they have this deep sense that they don't deserve really healthy relationships, or for someone to really love them, because they never felt that when they were they were children. So, and guys, it's difficult to hear that actually someone can actually leave you or abandon you or just leave and disappear, or do things that hurt you even when they love you. And as I mentioned before, it is this realization that each person, each individual have to come to, that there's something that's not working. And as an adult, this individual has the autonomy and the choice to change, right? Now, if this person is satisfied in the way they're entering and living in relationships and interacting in relationships, then that is someone you don't even want to be around, because they now, as an adult, and first of all, guys, you cannot change them. You cannot change anyone. So if you're in a relationship with someone with any of the attachment styles, the anxious, the dismissive, the fearful, avoidant, you cannot change them. I have so many of my clients at the beginning of working with me who will enter relationships, see the red flags, see the things that they know it's going to hurt them, see that it was a similar pattern from maybe someone who a past relationship or past relationships, and they still go into this relationship believing that they can love these people back to health, to loving them, to mental or emotional health, and make them, and they will all change. They will change. They will love them so much that they will change. People don't change like that, guys. People don't change like that. It has to be a conscious choice, a conscious decision, and consciously every single day working at changing those patterns of behavior that you grew up with, that's causing you to act in these toxic ways in relationships. It has to be consistent. It has to be deliberate. It has to be a choice that you make. Nothing just happens by chance. You have to make nothing that at least worthwhile happens by chance. You have things happening by chance all the time, but when you want change, no change just happens by chance. If you want something to change, you have to make a deliberate effort consistently to change the patterns of behavior. And as I've always said, I don't know if you've heard any of my other videos, that everyone who, when you want to change patterns of behavior, it cannot be just a one-off thing, right? When I have my clients, many of my clients at the very beginning believe, just like a lot of people who listen to YouTube videos, believe that by listening to videos and having the knowledge, the head knowledge, that this needs, that there's something wrong. And okay, oh, that sounds like me. And so if they get like a thing to do or whatever it is, they will do that little thing for a while. But what they don't recognize is that what you don't recognize, or they don't recognize, whoever is doing this, trying to do this on their own a lot of times, is that if you don't have if you're not consistent with doing this, with trying to change these patterns, if you're not deliberately doing certain, exchanging certain behaviors for better behaviors on a consistent, regular basis every time it happens, this is a way you change patterns, guys. It's a pattern of behavior that's causing you to act like that. So to change the pattern, it has to be consistent. So you're going to change your thought patterns, because a lot of times our behaviors, most of the times, if not all the time, our behaviors is as a result of the thoughts that we have, which we have not addressed. We just accepted those thoughts as true, and so we act from those thoughts. And there are different layers between there, different levels between the thought and the behavior, where you can change those patterns, right? But if you don't do this on a consistent basis, guys, it will not change. And only you can do it. Nobody can do it for you. I can give you all the tools you want. I can tell you everything you need to know. And if you don't do the thing to change the pattern, it will not change. Most of my clients at the beginning of coaching will come in and, want to change, really want to change. But even one of my clients said to me, he was very, very sincere about the fact that he listened to YouTube videos for so long, right? And he thought he could change what was happening and manage what was happening. But he recognized later on that he needed help, because he recognized that he's very good at listening and understanding the concepts, but he was not very good at doing and also maintaining on a repetitive basis the patterns of behavior, the patterns of thought that will allow him to change. And so that is where I came in, because now I was there to show him. And also sometimes, guys, when you're in a place where you've been acting from a certain position for over, if you're 30 years old, you've been acting from 30 years. If you're 60, you've been acting from that same pattern of behavior for 60 years. That is what is true for you. But that truth is very toxic for you in relationships, and also for others who are in relationship with you, right? So when you recognize that something is not right, you now have the choice to choose. And once you choose, the work just begins. Because when you choose, you now have to be committed to that pattern of growth, right? Committed to it and work on you. And I always say that, because I see it also with my clients, some of my clients will still want to be dating while they are, working with me. And I always suggest, actually, I recommend it, because otherwise you're wasting your money, that you do not date when you're going through the work of working on yourself. Because what happens is that these interactions and these individuals that you're dating, they are going to take away your attention from you. And at this point in time, because it takes so much to work on yourself, guys, you need to be totally committed to just working on you, instead of being pulled here and there by the different relationships you enter while you're working on yourself. So I hope that kind of helps. Let me see if there's anything else I need to talk about here. They will also it's almost like they go into a relationship expecting it to fail. They go into relationships expecting it to fail, right? And they continue to show love. The way they show love is that they feel that they have to suppress their needs to please somebody else, right? The person that they're in love with. And what happens with this, though, is that over time, this tendency to suppress their needs at the expense of others' needs, they become resentful, right? They become resentful, and then they might even start disliking the person, because they feel that it's because they have taken everything from them, that when it is they themselves that gave everything to others, right? And they will always, kind of like have this resentment, and then start almost feeling really protective of their self-preservation, and so they will leave that relationship. Sorry. They fear rejection, and will usually wait to be pursued. And usually the ones who will pursue them is probably the anxious, preoccupied, because they need that connection as well, right? But in someone else pursuing them, they feel a bit safer because they realize that this person likes them more than they actually, they have a little power over this person, because that's how it is. For them, they feel they have to have this upper hand in relationships for them not to be betrayed, right? Because if somebody loves you more than you love them, or care about you more than you care about them, the likelihood is that whatever you do might hurt them, but what if they do something, it won't hurt you as much, right? But but that also backfires in that the person with the fearful avoidant attachment style also, when they come to themselves and realize what they are doing and how they respond in relationships, they also come to almost hate themselves, in terms of, they don't like themselves too much because they realize that at their core they hurt others. They're constant. They feel that in relationships they're always hurting people. They're always leaving when something happens. They're always and so they also fear going into relationships because they believe they don't deserve to be in healthy relationships, because they just feel that they continuously hurt people, even though a lot of times it's not something that they do on purpose, but it's just that subconscious way of thinking and being that really kind of dictates this behavior. So for them to heal, they really have to come to terms with, once they start to notice this, then they can now start to work on themselves. Because I always say that the first step to healing is to become aware of what you're doing and how you're responding in relationships, right? So I see I have a question here. Let me answer this question. Let's put it on here. It says, what about working on yourself while in a relationship, not dating different people? So that means that you're already in a relationship. So when you're working on yourself while you're in a relationship, it's going to be more difficult because you're going to always have that interaction from the other party, right? So you're not so focused on you. But it can work. It's just that it's going to be a little bit more difficult because you're going to have all of this, these things that maybe your partner is doing depending on what attachment style they have. And you're now going to have to, when you're not really ready, you're not really healed, then you're now probably still responding from the way that you've always responded. So you're further, because the more you respond from the ways that you've always responded from childhood, even though you don't recognize that's what's happening, it is further concretized. And that is why I say that when you want to change something, these patterns of behavior, the old patterns of behavior, it has to be, you're changing the patterns, so you're doing something different. Now you have to be a really strong individual to really, while you're in a relationship, have the ability to maintain that change, because so many other things are coming at you from your partner, right? You have someone that's, you're seeing them every day. If you're married or you're in a relationship, you're seeing them every week or every day or every weekend, whatever it might be. But you're seeing someone else, and they have their input into that relationship, and you are going to be responding from their input instead of focusing on your change. Now, it's going to be a slower process. It's going to be a slower process. It is possible, but it's going to be a slower process, and you have to be dedicated. And the first thing with someone in a relationship that I would work on is the way they process their thoughts, right? So that they don't act from their thoughts without logically, you know, checking out, what is it, these thoughts, is this thought true, is it true? And if it's true, all of those processes that I usually teach my clients. So self-control is very important, because when you're in a relationship with somebody else, you have to have self-control so you don't further escalate whatever is happening with that person. And also, it's just going to be much more difficult, and also um, more challenging for you in that you're going to be there and this person is going to be interacting with you daily. So you know, not focus on yourself alone. You're focusing on you and this other person, right? So it's possible, but it's going to be more difficult. If that's a short answer to that question. All right. Hope that helps. Let me know if you have any other questions. Healing takes time, guys. It's not going to be a one-off thing. It's going to be a continuous process as you go and deal with every single thing, every single area, the logic, trying to kind of combine, trying to kind of maneuver between the logical and the emotional in a healthy way, instead of having them almost like they're two different silos between which you flip-flop, depending on what you're experiencing in your relationship, or depending on what you're thinking or expecting in your relationships, right? One of the processes of healing, guys, when you have an attachment style, especially like the fearful avoidant, is that the fearful avoidant is always they have the logical side of the dismissive, and they have the emotional side of the anxious, right? And those sides that they have, these two competing sides, they're competing with one another. They're not integrated, right? When you're a secure individual, will have integrated the logical and the emotional, and can maneuver between those things easily, right? They can use emotional the logic to question the emotions that they're feeling. Whereas for the fearful, they just act purely out of logic or purely out of emotions. It's just siloed. And so what is important when you're healing is that you learn to integrate both sides, so that whatever is happening, you can think of it, if it's emotional, if it's something that's emotional, then you are logically able to question that as well, to see if that emotional feeling that you have, those thoughts that cause that emotion, makes sense. Um, you're welcome, You're welcome. Any other questions? Let me know, okay? So basically, guys, it is, but I always say to my clients, and for those who may say, it's too much work to work on yourself, it is. I've been working on myself. My primary way of acting in a relationship is anxious. That was my primary. And now I've integrated both sides to now be able to logically question my emotions, what I'm feeling. So I'm more secure now, much more secure. The things that normally rattled me, the triggers that I usually had, no longer bothers me, right? And it doesn't hold reign over the way that I respond in situations, right? So this is where every single attachment style, that's where you have to come to a place where you integrate the logic. The thing is that they dismissive, for example, they have to now bring in more emotional and be able to now operate more from an emotional side, because they have the logical part pat. They have it down pat. And the anxious now, they have the very emotional side, and they don't think logically. So they need to bring in more logics where they can question all the emotions that they're feeling. Is this true? And then work on integrating those sides as well. And of course, there are so many other different levels and areas to work on when you're working on your attachment style, because it depends on the traumas. One, especially for the anxious, is a bad fear of abandonment, and to a certain extent also part of, because the fearful has both sides, they also suffer from that, and they suffer from the fear of somebody leaving them. They because, as I said before, when they were younger, they fear relationships, because even though they knew they needed that emotional connection and that connection to someone, they also feared it, because they never know when their caregiver would either hit them, abuse them, or in some way, or whatever it is that happened when they were younger. So guys, I hope that somehow I was able to clarify, or maybe clarify, or even expand on some of the things you knew about the understanding of the fearful avoidant individual. And I want to again reiterate that if you have this attachment style, this is not your fault. You didn't choose it. But now, the thing is, you are now an adult, and you can choose to change. Now, if you don't choose to change, that's where you have that responsibility, right? And I'm not saying that if you're another attachment style and you're in a relationship with someone who's fearful, that you should put up with all of that, because it's very difficult. If that person does not see the need to change, you cannot change them, guys. In any of the attachment styles, whether it's dismissive or anxious, each of you, you have to take the responsibility now that you're an adult to work on changing those patterns of behavior. So I hope that you understand and get some information from this. And if you did, guys, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel so that you can be notified of any. Also, hit the notification bell, because if you don't hit the notification bell, you won't be notified when I have the lives that are coming up. I do those every Monday at 1 p.m. EST time, and so look out for that. Every Monday I try to do this, unless something really, something is happening that I can't be there. But I try to be here every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, guys? In the meantime, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next Monday. This is Christine, your Relationship and Mindset Master Doctor, and your Leverage for Change. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.